Thanks for joining us. Britain, France and Canada are stepping up pressure on Israel for its renewed offensive on Gaza. They threaten to take concrete actions, including imposing sanctions. In a joint statement, the leaders of the three countries called on Israel to immediately allow aid into the Strip. Israel's rejecting calls to end its blockade. In the meantime, Israel's stepping up air and ground attacks across the Strip. At least 60 Palestinians have been killed in strikes on Tuesday. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to take control of all of Gaza. Well, we have three correspondents covering this story. Hashem Ahelbarra is live in Brussels. Hamdah Salut is in Amman for reaction within Israel. But first, let's head to central Gaza and speak to Tareq Azzoum, live outside the Al-Aqsa hospital in Deir el-Balah. Tareq, explain and give us some context when it comes to the impact of Israel's new military surge and, of course, these evacuation orders on Palestinian families.
Yeah, indeed. Israel's continuous bombardment paired with the relentless evacuation orders has in fact turned life here in Gaza into a very deadly game of survival. Families have been forced to flee over and over again as the sound of explosions continue to echo across the entire Gaza Strip as a part of the Israeli ongoing expansion of the Israeli ground operations in Gaza in light of the absence as well of any diplomatic breakthrough in negotiations between the conflicting parties. Apparently, the Israeli military continues to pass evacuation orders for families, in fact, with no guarantees of safety and with no clear destination for many families. They are being called to move to Al-Mawasi area, the safe humanitarian zones. I'm talking about only for residents in the southern part of Gaza, but for families in the north, they have been called to move southward or to the western end of the city. Now, these areas have no clear civilian infrastructure, including toilets, water, or any kind of food as well, which could be a sign of the devastating consequences emerging from the Israeli ongoing release of evacuation orders. It creates a certain feeling of chaos among families who have nowhere else to turn, and in many cases they were forced to walk on foot for long distance in order to find any sense of refuge. Others were forced to sleep in open fields and on the pavement until they can find a place where they can secure their families as well.
Tareq Azzoum there with the very latest from Gaza. Many thanks. Well, Hamdah Salut joins us now from Amman. She's there because the Israeli government's banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel and the occupied West Bank. So, Hamdah, despite this mounting international pressure on Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is threatening to take control of all of Gaza.
That's right. Late last night, the Israeli Prime Minister released two statements, one that was written and one on video. In that video, he said that there's going to be a complete takeover of Gaza, that is what Israel is going to do as part of this new and expanding military operation. But look, there's been so much international pressure on Netanyahu, and yesterday, on Monday, there was a flurry of statements that had come out against the Israelis, against Israeli policy, following weeks of rhetoric from allies and adversaries about Israel's conduct in Gaza. But the most interesting of these statements came from the United Kingdom, came from France and Canada, who actually threatened action against Israel if they did not lift the humanitarian blockade of assistance on the Gaza Strip, if they continued the expansion of illegal settlements, and if they continued to expand the ground offensive in the Gaza Strip. But it's not just a ground offensive, of course, it's from the land, air and sea that Israel has been attacking. But Netanyahu released another statement slamming all of those remarks that had come from these different signatories on these different statements that had come also from the UN human rights chief, saying that Israel is going to continue fighting this war until absolute victory.
Hamdah, many thanks for that. Hamdah Salut in Amman. Well, on the point of international pressure, relations with Brussels are in the spotlight between, of course, Israel and the European Union. In Brussels, Hashem Ahelbarra is at a leaders' meeting. Hashem, is there unity when it comes to the EU nations on how to deal with Israel going forward?
Niamh, for the time being, there is more and more pressure from many countries on the need to review the trade agreement with Israel or impose sanctions. Just a while ago, the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Kaja Kallas, said that the EU rejects the weaponization of the aid into Gaza, calls for an immediate end to the blockade and an immediate end to the war in Gaza. The French have been saying exactly the same thing, saying that they are going to discuss the potential for imposing sanctions on Israel against the backdrop of the ongoing disastrous situation for civilians in Gaza. We do understand that the Netherlands, along with Norway, France, Ireland, Spain and many other countries are saying that EU is violating Article 2 of its agreement with, Israel is violating Article 2 of its agreement with the EU. The Article 2 is pretty much about humanitarian laws and human rights, and they say that the relentless bombardment, refusing aid into Gaza is a clear breach of that deal, and therefore the EU must come together and decide that Israel should face repercussions, particularly when it comes to the sanctions. Are they going to put on a united front? They have to convince Germany, which has been saying so far no to the sanctions, and they continue to push for talks with the Israelis to convince Israel to allow aid and end the war.
Hashem Ahelbarra in Brussels, thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.